Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Welcome to episode 78 for the second time. I'm Rocco, and with me today is Ryan, the newest Mozart.
That's right. I feel like I told you this story before, but I painted my walls.
It sounds familiar.
It does sound a little bit familiar.
We also have the boss, PZ.
Yep, and before Ryan gets exciting, I think he missed the word not in the previous one, so I have not extreme distro hopped.
Oh.
So Rocco's going to be happy, you're going to be sad.
Boring.
I am going to be happy. And then there's the newest piano mover, Michael.
Yes. I don't really want to have to get another man in a truck, but it seems like that's being my new business.
You're going to make a killing.
Yeah, right.
Piano moving is the next hot thing.
Everyone loves piano movies. It's not like you can just have people take it away, and you could charge so much money like free online.
Yeah.
Right.
Rich.
All right, so we got a lot to cover today. We are going to talk about distro news like Elementary Beta and some Linux Mint a little bit, some Xfce, also the newest, maybe possible company getting into gaming. But before we do, we're going to cover an email that we got. And this email is from Yannick, aka the French guy from Switzerland, Ryan.
I love his name. His name is so awesome.
All right, so he sent us an email talking about Raspberry Pi, Raspbian desktop. I'm not completely familiar with Raspbian desktop or a Raspberry Pi because I have never done anything like that, but you have.
Yeah, I mean, Raspbian runs in my car because I have the Raspberry Pi that's connected to the console in my car, and that's what I run as the OS in my vehicle. And so, you know, it's a fantastic OS, very lightweight for a Raspberry Pi because it's a very low-powered piece of hardware. But what he was adding into the conversation is to let us know that they actually have a full desktop version of Raspbian, which I did not know. And so obviously you're not going to want to run this on the latest and greatest hardware. It's not going to be, you know, super snazzy. That's not really what Raspbian is for. But if you have a very low-powered machine, or in his case, he's actually a Linux developer and uses it as a testing bed, it's a pretty cool idea to have and be able to utilize. So I just thought it was really cool that Yannick, a.k.a. the French guy from Switzerland, sent us this information. I wasn't aware that the desktop version actually existed, and something that if anyone's interested in trying, they can go check out.
Yep, it's pretty cool. I didn't know it existed either. I'm not really sure why it exists, but it's cool that it does.
Yep.
And how easy are they to get set up? I mean, you get this little box with all bits and pieces and you put it all together. So is it then just like a very low-powered PC? I mean,
as far as the Raspberry Pi goes, it's actually ridiculously easy in comparison of like any kind of thing like Arduino or something like that, where you have to actually like put pins and stuff. It already has pretty much everything by default good to go if you want to like just kind of play with it. And in order to get it to work as far as booting, you need an SD card or a micro SD card. And they have this new system. They have a cool method of installing operating systems on the Pi, which is called Noobs.
Yep.
New out-of-the-box software. And it's just a zip file that you extract onto the SD card. When you boot the Raspberry Pi with that SD card, it'll load this interface you can choose which distro you want to use, and then it just installs from there. So it's very easy and nice.
I mean, there are so many projects you can do with the Raspberry Pi. You can do home automation with it. You can do robotics. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. So I think when you talk about what would you use it for, I think that the idea, like our favorite French guy from Switzerland said, is a testing bed for different applications or things that you're using for those methods would be an opportunity for you to test that out in a desktop environment. Obviously, it would be extraordinarily lightweight. So if you have very, very old hardware, that would be a very cool thing to use. It's actually a very intuitive, well-done operating system. I mean, it runs on a screen, on an 8-inch screen in my car, and you can still interact.
The Raspbian itself is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the desktop version is kind of odd for me because if it's, as far as a testing bench, it doesn't really work, in my opinion, because of the fact that it's an x86 architecture versus an ARM architecture, and they're very different. So even if you test software on x86 and you go to test it on ARM, doesn't mean it's going to work. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. But I mean, it's cool that you can play with it and see how it works if you don't have a Pi, I guess.
Yep.
Oh, it actually would work in a virtual machine too.
All right, so the first news item we have is Elementary OS Juno Beta. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
What do you think, Rocco? You've been talking about this thing nonstop. This is like your dream. You won't shut up about Juno. Are you happy now?
Dude, okay, so I'm not happy because I can't install it on my main machine yet, but I can't wait to install
He's
this
never
thing.
happy. Rocco is never happy.
Never completely happy. But no, look, this is, I'm sorry, in my opinion, the most beautiful desktop out there.
Wow.
And they're adding so many nice features little by little here and there as you go along. And one of the critiques that Elementary gets is that it's locked down and you can't change it, or it doesn't offer the functionality that this person specifically wants. Well, you can unlock it if you'd like to. Right. It's not the most customizable desktop ever, but they're adding little features here and there that are giving people the ability to run it and not feel so, locked down, enclosed. They have done many improvements in this beta, trackpad improvements so that you can swipe the menu and it goes to the next one.
Nice.
They have done system tray improvements, like little things like the battery icon. So when you click on it, it flies out or flies to the left and tells you the actual percentage. Little things that make it awesome. They have put a file explorer in Code, their text editor. Have you has anybody ever used Code?
Not yet. No, I've used the previous version, but I haven't used it since they turned it into Code.
Well, I have been on it for a couple hours, and I will say that, let me put the disclaimer out there that this is not for your production machine. It is a beta, and it has known bugs, known regressions in it. So I definitely would not recommend it for your main machine. Although I have seen people talk about the fact that they have put it on their main machine and not had any problems with it. Zeb?
Yeah, I mean, I when it first came out, I used it for 3 days solid, and it was fine. I mean, I don't really tax my machines other than you must be able to install NVIDIA, OBS, and Steam, and it ate all those up without a problem. I did the usual. Add a few bits and pieces so that you can add PPAs and run Debbie files if that's what you want. But the actual main software itself, I don't think I even installed elementary tweaks. I just accepted what it gave me. And it was very, very usable. And obviously beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because I think it's just on this beta. But wow, that wallpaper. That's something else. You get
it's purple, isn't it?
Is it purple, Michael, or is it some other special color that you?
Well, I mean, that technically.
What is the hex color, Michael?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will find out for you, and I will tell you in the show notes for sure, because it's very important. And I'll even give you the CMYK version as well.
Wow,
nice.
So hopefully they'll change that for the final release. But other than that, yeah, it's a great OS.
Yeah, they usually do change that. But there was a ton of improvements. We'll put the list to the notes in the show notes, but files improvements, printing preferences have been redesigned so it looks all nice and shiny. I love it.
Yep. But it'll be interesting as well, because a lot of people who've moved to the 1804 base said they've been having all sorts of little problems with it. So I'm wondering whether, with Juno coming out 3 or 4 months after the release, have they been able to iron a few of those out?
Well, one of the problems that I had heard before about Elementary was that they couldn't recognize people's printers, certain people's printers, like I guess specific brands. But I do have an HP printer on the network, and it did recognize it immediately. So
yeah,
nice.
there's still an issue with printers, but that's an issue of, like, I mean, all operating systems have a problem with printers, because printers are like the bane of existence for computing, but HP is my favorite printer company, because they committed to Linux like 12, 15 years ago, somewhere around there. And since then, all of their printers just work with the built-in drivers of the kernel.
Well, there is another beautiful operating system out there that you can play with that I actually had never played with before and really enjoyed, especially when I started having some of these flashbacks to Gen 2. that is installing the straight Gentoo. That was not a fun experience for me. I'm happy for all those people that enjoy it, but for me, that was not a great experience. But there is an easier way to get Gentoo on your machine, and that is through Redcore Linux. And they have a new hardened 1806 release, and it is very, very cool. Like, I was able to get in there and enjoy Gentoo right away versus spending 3 days compiling, which is the first advantage that it has. But it also has a lot of really cool tools. It's a very beautiful desktop environment. Has anybody else here tried Redcore Linux? Because I dug it.
Yeah. The previous one, I could never even get it to start. And then something sort of like tweaked the back of my memory where I thought, well, hang on a minute, unplug every USB drive you've got and then disconnect every other SSD and then try and install it. And yes, result, I got it installed and it fired up. And nothing worked. Right mouse click didn't work. The menu didn't work. Control-Alt-Delete didn't work. Control-Alt-T. So they've hardened it so much that you're never going to get a bug because you can't use it.
Well,
so Zeb is a fan of Redcore. We get it.
Yeah.
No, I would love to use it because it does look really, really good, and so many people talk it up. I just can't get it to work on my software, on my hardware.
I like Redcore's idea of making Gentoo like they get the powerful aspects of Gentoo without having to go through all the headaches of Gentoo, but also still getting the benefits of having it specifically to your particular machine and things like that. Like, that's a really cool idea, and I've tried it a while back and it worked fine, but I tried it when on its first couple versions or so, and I haven't tried it since. So that's my bad there.
I did download it and I tried to put it in GNOME boxes. It failed to load in GNOME boxes.
That's so strange because that's where I used it, was in GNOME boxes.
I just kind of moved on. But Brian, you played with it for a little bit. So what are your impressions of it? Like, I mean, does it offer the same benefit as a regular Gentoo install?
I'm not an expert in Gentoo. Obviously, there are a couple of people that I knew back in some of the series that I did on my channel that would come in and talk about Gentoo. I finally did the install of Gentoo. It was painful, but it was a learning experience. And people, I'm assuming once you learn that and do it enough times, it would be second nature. But for me, that's just not what I enjoy. I enjoy the learning part, but not the taking forever to compile stuff in that. So that makes Redcore very approachable. You still get some of these benefits of Gentoo. They have some tools in here that are supposed to give you, the whole idea behind Gentoo is it's kind of tailored to your hardware. You're building Linux around it. They have some tools in here that, they call it their Swiss Army knife here. Vassal, I think it was called, and it allows you to basically detect the CPU cores you have, install some of the portage custom to your hardware portage packages and things like that. So it does attempt to give you that Gentoo experience and tailor the build to your system, which I think is awesome. It uses LXQT. So those who are LXQT fans of desktop environment will absolutely dig that. It has a very beautiful wallpaper, but I'll tell you the thing I liked a lot was the pre-installed software was a very nice selection of pre-installed software. You got Steam, you got Lutris by default, which not a lot of distros include Lutris by default. Falcon Bright, GovCView, PCMan FM, VLC, and then there's Sisyphus, I think it's called, GUI. Sisyphus installer.
Yeah, it's their package manager.
Got a huge catalog of software. And that was really cool because it reminded me in a way of Arch, where you could just go in there, type in a package, it's going to be there built that you could just click install and move on. So I would say if you're interested in Gentoo, this would be a fantastic first experience for you versus necessarily going through the compiling version first. And then if you want to go to the compiling version later, great. But this would be a fantastic first experience for Gentoo.
Yeah, like dipping your toes in the water kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep.
But did you only do it in VirtualBox?
I did, yes, in VirtualBox.
Yeah, because I got the previous one to work in VirtualBox, and it was marvelous, and that's why.
Well, it wasn't VirtualBox; it was GNOME boxes. But
oh, right, okay, mine was VirtualBox before, and I thought, yeah, this is great. Let's get it on my hardware, but for some reason, it just doesn't want to know. So
GNOME box is really Fedora guy.
Moving on.
So if you don't want to deal with any kind of Gentoo based thing, and you want to look for more easy to use distribution, then Linux Mint 19 might be something that you'd want to look at. And they just released the latest version of 19 was released fairly recently. And we talked about it previously on a previous episode, but we just want to talk about the actual release because it is something that a lot of people are interested in and has a lot of buzz around it. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say, again, I used it for a couple of days after it came out, and I never had any problems with it. It just works. My difficulty is I never really see all the, they talk about, I've improved this, I've improved that, and I've added this and I've added that. But like I've explained to you before, just as a basic user, you miss all that goodness and miss all that richness unless you really get deep down into it. So installing it, using it, running it, fine, not a problem at all. Understanding what the improvements do for the average user, no idea, because it just works like the previous one did.
I mean, that's kind of the point of back-end improvements, is to make it where it's as not obvious as possible.
Seamless as possible, yeah.
Yeah, but there are updates to this version compared to 18.3. So I mean, they've redesigned the welcome screen to actually be functional,
be useful.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, and it is actually a pretty good welcome screen now. I mean, it has everything you need to start up, whether it be the drivers, updates. So that is definitely an improvement.
Yeah, I think Mint was like one of the first distros to include a welcome screen. It's just the one they have now is useful.
Yeah, I think they were, but it was kind of like not very useful.
It was like a splash screen sort of, but
right.
It was. I like the fact that they were like first on the idea sort of, but like now they're kind of like revamping it to make it more like providing like documentations and stuff like that.
And there was a concern about their updates, so they did integrate time shift, which solves some of the update worries. Not everything, Michael. You're not completely convinced, but
no, I think it's a decent workaround for the issue, but I don't think it solves the issue. I just think it provides a solution around it, which is better than nothing. Which is a solution around it.
It solved the issue.
Around
well done, Mint. It's a beautiful OS. It is definitely one of the ones I recommend a lot of people who are trying Linux out for the first time go out and try and utilize, because it's just got a very familiar, stable base. I think this new version of Mint is gorgeous. I love what they did with the snapshots. I think it's just brilliant. And I love the idea that they're introducing things like time shift by default in there, because, a lot of people don't think about backing their files. It's kind of like the encryption message that Pop! OS and others were trying to get across. So they're getting across here with the backups of your system and being able to go, if you have a situation where you do an update and you boot and all of a sudden you get that black screen of text, instead of distro hopping like most of us do, now you can just revert the updates back and get back into a working system. So I think it's brilliant. I've enjoyed my time in the new Mint and always excited for what these guys are up to over there.
But that's also one of the things they've added to the welcome screen is to set up time shift right away, which is awesome. The only thing I would say about it is that if you're on 18.3, I'll just say I don't know if you should update. Like if your 18.3 is working for you, is there enough in here to make you want to update?
Why would you?
I would say yes, because of 1804.
The lead developer is also blogging at the moment about problems with upgrading from 1803 or 18.3 to 19. And I don't know if it's their problem or a regression that's in the Ubuntu side of things. So what he's saying is hold off from upgrading at the moment until we've ironed out all these bugs, and we'll let you know when it's ready. Because I noticed that the Phoronix OS was saying that on he's managed to upgrade Phoron, but he's now stopped everyone else from doing it because of these regression problems within, I think, the Ubuntu update. Obviously, they build upon Ubuntu and then do their own Mint thing. But going back to that time shift thing, what's really interesting is if you use time shift on other operating systems as well, it doesn't care, because it will just list you all of the backups you've got and what operating system you took them from. So there's no, you can't make a mistake and try and restore Linux Mint and you actually put Peppermint back on or wherever else you've used it. So that's a really nice feature about time shift. You can use it if you're a distro hopper.
It's awesome.
Very nice. I did not know that.
So coinciding with that as well, and I don't know whether they chose to do it at the same time, But they're also making available, and I've got to be careful because I keep tripping over this, a new Mintbox Mini 2 computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got two types. They've got the Mintbox Mini 2 and the Mintbox Mini 2 Pro. Now, I think primarily the difference between the two is one has a larger SSD by default. And I think the other one you can get more RAM installed. But it certainly sounds like, you know, they're selling this as a machine for everybody to use. And yet in their preamble, they talk about, and you can use it in an industrial environment at temperatures ranging from minus 40 degrees Celsius to 85 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you guys who are not aware of what Celsius is, that's a range of flipping cold to flaming hot.
That helps.
That definitely helps.
Yeah, and it runs on a quad-core Intel Celeron. So if you're looking for this nice little machine to stick out the back, it supports 4K resolution. It'll be out of the way. The only thing that I think is the downside is the price. It's $299 for the basic and $349 for the Pro. Now, would any of you guys consider buying this particular?
If I can blame it on Rocco,
I'll help you out with
just
that.
One of these. Yeah, Rocco's been a huge bro lately because I've been blaming all these purchases to my wife on him, and he's been a champ, man. Every time she comes downstairs and like, why did you order this? And I'm like, Rocco made fun of me. So this is the new one where Rocco can make fun of me and it might show up. But so there's a story where I created a media box, and I'll tell the short version of it. I wanted to create a media box for my entertainment system upstairs, and I ended up creating this giant computer that was supposed to be mini, but I kept adding and adding to it, to my wife's horror. And so I kept thinking, when I look at stuff like this where it's pre-built and it's tiny and you could stick it there and use it as a Plex server or a Kodi server, as well as, you know, obviously storing pictures and things like that on it for a media center. Or Rocco, you had some ideas with it to improve your distro hopping.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of room where I'm at, so I could probably get one of those and get a switch for it and use it as a second PC to distro hop on. And it wouldn't take up any more space. Yeah. And I think that'd be an awesome use case for it. I don't know if I was going to do that. I don't know if I would do this or maybe one of the System 76 ones. I think maybe a better option for me particularly.
Yeah, I like the stuff based on a NUC because the processor can be much more powerful.
I was going to say, they're only using the quad-core Intel Celeron, the J3455. Is that, I mean, I know they're putting Mint 19 on it, but is that sufficient to run most operating systems well today?
Yeah, Celeron is actually a pretty. The Celeron is a brand that Intel kind of brought back into current. Like it's Celeron's used to be the really old thing, and it's no longer that. They brought it back and a new reinvigoration of the Celeron brand. So like you can get brand new quad core models, and they are pretty good, especially for like a lower end introductory processor. But it's still a low end processor. So
right.
It's good low end, but it's still low end. And since this particular model the product doesn't have an option for an i3 or i5 or i7 or something like that, like it kind of.
I mean, this is still pretty powerful though for a media box, considering you run it on a Raspberry Pi. Having a Celeron, you're going to feel like you're flying in comparison.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying it's weak or anything. I'm just saying like as far as like overall, I would have preferred like an i3, but I do like the fact that it has an option for 16 gigs of RAM. That's an extreme amount of RAM for a small set-top box type.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think an i3 would probably raise the price as well. So I think they're trying to keep it at a certain price. And although I would probably prefer a System 76 type mini, this has some great use cases for people who don't have a lot of space and don't need a high-powered machine. All they need.
I don't like correcting you guys, but you keep saying i3, and I think you meant Ryzen 3.
No, I think we meant an i3.
Ryzen 3.
I think
I fixed it for you.
Thanks.
I did mean that. Yes.
So how does that price point hold up of $299 for the basic?
Well, I think that's a little bit higher than I would pay for that spec.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, honestly, that's roughly around the same price as a laptop now.
Yeah.
So,
right. So, and is that because it is just like a software house trying to branch out into the hardware market. So
You've got
No,
a
because
lot of-
they don't make the hardware.
You've
This
got
is
a lot
this
of
is
unique
deal.
things in here. This is much smaller, obviously, than a laptop. I mean, you could stick a laptop next to your home entertainment system, but it'd look kind of goofy, right? I mean, some people do it, but this is a little tiny box that's completely fanless with no moving parts that you could stick anywhere. Now, think about like the application where I took the Raspberry Pi and I use it in my car, to run programs, or even when we're sitting in the school line and it's in park, it has to be in park for the screen to come on. But when you're in park, you can play different games or whatever where we're waiting to pick up the kids. Well, this would be a much more powerful version of that little box. And because it can handle those extreme temperatures, I could still keep it in my car, just kind of like the Raspberry Pi, but you get a lot more power with it. So I think there are specific use cases for this in factories, garages, those type of things, in cars, trucks, where you're looking to put something like this where it could be really valuable, and that price point would not be a deterrent. It is a little high just looking at the specs that you get, but I think they'll continue to improve on this design if it's popular enough, and we'll get more out of it. But there's an option we all drooled about over at System 76 as well to check out if you're interested in that type of thing, because I think it gives it a good run for its money.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so moving on to one of my favorite desktop environments, Xfce. We had some great news just recently that they're making good progress heading towards 4.14. Now, if you're wondering why they're talking about 4.13 products, that's sort of like the development ground in between the 4.12 that everybody's using now and the 4.14 that we're all going to hopefully end up on. So what they've been able to do is they've been able to port some more applications and panel plugins and all the rest of it over to be fully GTK compliant. So they've issued some more 4.13 components. Now, what I'm not sure of, and hopefully one of you more technical guys can tell me, is how you would add these to your 4.12 base that you've got now to enjoy this richness that's coming through.
Oh, well, I mean, the main thing is that the way that Xfce is built is, for a long time, it's been like a modular structure building. So you can take bits and pieces that for 4.13 that would be compatible because they're not technically connecting to the 4.12 base. So certain parts, like, for example, an application that wouldn't necessarily be associated to another part of the DE. Like you could have Thunar and the Xfce panel don't technically associate to themselves. They work and they integrate together through a modular plugin system, but they don't necessarily like depend on each other. So you can have one be one version and using another version, and another one use a different version, and it should work just fine.
Nice. So what's good about this is for a long time, people were complaining that Xfce was stagnant. It wasn't moving. There was no development, but we'll leave a list in the show notes, but there's at least 11 projects that they've updated to the 4.13 base. So things are looking good. All of these will be made available in 18.10. And what they're hoping for is to have 4.14 out for the next LTS release. So fingers crossed, it won't be long now so we see all this Xfce goodness on a full GTK system.
Well, we know why we haven't got a chance to game with Sean Davis, Rocco, because he's clearly been busy. When you look at all of these updates and tweaks and things that he's doing here, I mean, Zeb mentioned them, but 11 projects were updated in July from Xfce alone. All the features, they're getting ready for 18.10, the transition from GTK2 to GTK3. And they're expecting it to come in much sooner than they originally expected. Sean Davis is killing it over there, and this is my, this was my first desktop environment when I came to Linux 2 years ago. This is my favorite desktop environment, always will be. Sean does incredible work, and love seeing the new features coming through Xfce.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this isn't like earth-shattering news, but this is why we bring up articles like this, is because there is always continued work. So everybody's trying out the newest, Linux Mint or elementary beta, but there's all kinds of work going on with Ubuntu 18.10 that and now is when they're putting it in. So it ought to be a great release.
Yep.
Well, another distro has given a update for their. It's not a major update, and I'd like to say, Chip, this is for you, buddy. Chip in the YouTube channel, he loves Manjaro. Manjaro 17.1.11 has been released, and it's basically just an ISO update for Xfce and GNOME. But Michael, KDE is now moved up to 5.13.2.
Nice. That's the best DE. Obviously, everyone here agrees that it's the best DE.
Wrong.
What?
It's good though.
Wow.
Okay. I heard Ryan's. All I heard was it's good and the best.
Oh. So it's an audio issue.
So again, this is not a major update, but 5.13.2 does bring in Plasma browser integration, system settings redesign,
and the fantastic external monitor display selection.
Oh yeah,
control.
you guys got to talk about this. This is really cool.
I did the 5.13 version. I don't remember what distro it was that I booted into with the new KDE, and this screen pops up, and it has like five or six different options that you can pick from. And I'm like, what is this? And it has monitor to the left, second monitor to the right, and switched all around these different configurations you can just pick from. And I picked which one I wanted, the main monitor to the right and the secondary monitor to the left, clicked it, immediately switched to this configuration without any hassle or setup at all. It was awesome.
That is awesome.
Nice.
Yep. That when I first saw that in the announcement, in the commits when I was working on the promo video, it was like, finally, there's an easy way to set up external monitors, and it works so smoothly and stuff. I haven't had to mess with it. Like, it just pops up, you click a button, and you're done. Like, perfect.
Michael, this is something that should be in every desktop environment. Yeah, every OS.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I agree. I very much agree.
And this is why KDE is the best innovation.
The best.
Anyways, there's also Xfce and GNOME editions with rebuilds and updated packages as well in this Manjaro 17.1.11 release, and we need.
That's true. We should also talk about Plasma too.
Yep.
Well, forgetting the Plasma side of it, I actually installed the Manjaro Deepin version, and I've got to say that is one beautiful distro.
Yeah,
it looks gorgeous, and even simple things like your wallpaper, which for me is makes such a massive impact. It's this beautiful royal blue that just creeps up into where they get their Manjaro green and orange, and then into a pale blue in the corner, and it's just stunning. The only reason I'm not running it at the moment is because I thought there was a problems with the Bluetooth side of it, but it turns out it's my headphone that are the problems, and not Manjaro Deepin. So yeah, the 17.1.11 base was beautiful. Installed no problems. Updated no problems. Used the Manjaro kernel manager. I think I'm on 4.17.4. Rock solid. It's great.
Nice. Lots of love for Manjaro out there. But you know what?
Try that out.
You know what needs some more love, Rocco?
Really, dude?
Fedora. You know who loves Fedora? This guy right here loves Fedora. Fedora's got some news out there we got to talk about because we're getting ready for Fedora 29. Always thinking ahead, Fedora is. Always moving on to the next thing.
Wow, this guy just constantly talking about this. It's I would never do that on a podcast. No. That's just ridiculous.
I mean, we're supposed to be fair and balanced across.
Well, look.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, this may not sound exciting to everybody, but, we do talk about distribution, spending time working on the little things behind the scenes that you may not appreciate everyday beauty of, but that create more functionality and ease of use and speed. So Fedora is doing a couple things. Number one, in 29, they're going to be retiring Yum, which I think is great because DNF is amazing.
DNF is awesome.
No reason to use Yum anymore. Just DNF history by itself is one of the most incredible. I just love that because you can go and basically uninstall individual updates and all of that. But with the Fedora 29, they're also working on the compression of their repository. So they're going to be switching from Xfce and gzip to zchunk, which everyone's like, so who cares? Well, this creates a huge performance boost. Some of these files are 23% larger utilizing these other formats than they would using zchunk, which means you're going to be able to get to the software faster, get it downloaded. It's going to be smaller. and that's going to increase the size and stability of the software store and repository. So those are just some of the changes that are coming with Fedora 29, but probably the most notable is Yum being retired out there.
So these changes, are they going to affect? They're going to affect your updates, is what you're saying? The speed of your updates.
They could affect the speed of your updates and the speed of all of the software in their repository. So now, because it's going to be compressed further, you're going to be able to download software much quicker and getting it installed much faster as well. Yep.
And gzip has been around for a very long time, and zchunk is fairly in comparison, it's fairly new. So it's a much more compressed algorithm. So it makes it where it still has the same benefits of using gzip, but it does more compression without losing like quality of the compression itself. So like it's definitely an improvement. And DNF for getting rid of Yum is definitely an improvement, because DNF is fantastic. Even though I don't use Fedora, I do think DNF is one of the best package managers available. But just so you know, people, if you are going to use CentOS or anything like Red Hat or anything like that, Yum is still there. This is just applying to Fedora 29 that Yum is being removed. So eventually those other the distros that are related to Fedora will also do that, but it'll be a couple years or so.
Mm-hmm. And have they given an indication as to when the first beta will be available?
They have not. The thing about Fedora is that they don't typically give you a release time, the release schedule, because they don't stick to a specific release schedule like Ubuntu does, but they will tell you within like a month or two prior to release that when it's coming.
Cool.
The next topic today is SUSE was sold for $2.5 billion.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. That's a lot of money specifically for a Linux company. Because it wasn't a company buying the parent company. Like previously there was a company that Micro Focus purchased the parent company of SUSE and just also got SUSE. This time it is purchasing SUSE itself. And that is really interesting, because Micro Focus used to, they were using SUSE as a subset of its own company. Whereas what EQT is doing is they're actually separating so that SUSE is becoming its own individual company again, like it used to be back in the day. So it's going to have a lot more control without having to worry about the parent company trying to tell them what to do. So I'm looking forward to see what happens there.
Well, I'm looking forward to try to get Richard Brown on the show to talk to him about it, because we've been trying, but our communication hasn't been really fluent. So we're going to definitely try to get him on. But this is a lot of money to purchase a company like this. What do you think the benefit for them to buy it is?
I think it just adds to their portfolio as far as like they're an equity company. So
so they're not. Oh, okay, I got you. So they're not a business that's running anything. They're just an equity company. Yeah,
they're a private equity company that basically purchases companies and uses them as a way to make more, sort of.
That would.
I mean, SUSE has an impressive portfolio of. I mean, obviously, if you look at the couple times they went from Novell to Attachmate to Micro Focus and now EQT, but each time they kind of like doubled or tripled the amount of money people are paying for them. They do incredibly well when it comes to enterprise, and they have over 1,400 employees. They make a fantastic profit. It is a very well-run company from that standpoint. So I would imagine it was very, very attractive for EQT to come in and pick them up with their enterprise businesses that they're
the leading enterprise distribution of Linux in Germany, for example. And it's OpenSUSE has a lot of benefits, but SUSE itself also makes a lot of great things, and especially like the infrastructure of the SUSE infrastructure is amazing. If you look at like the fundamentals of how it all works together with the OBS and with the OpenQA and things like that. So I'm definitely I can't wait to talk to Richard Brown about having him on the show, because I want to talk about all those things.
He was very he pointed out several times, so I think we should mention it again, that there will be no changes. He's assuring people to the user experience that SUSE isn't going to suddenly cost money. Nothing is changing. It's staying exactly the same. It's really just, this has happened throughout history and nothing changed then, and they don't expect anything will change now. So
actually, it sounds like it may be for the better. So
yeah. I mean, they also announced that, or EQT is also announcing they're going to be putting money into SUSE, so it's going to even build it even better than it is. So, like, if anything, that's not going to change to the negative, it's going to make it better.
There you go.
Nice. Well, something that is changing is the Kdenlive video editor. And they're getting close to the next gen Kdenlive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of known compatibility bugs, which I think is going to cause people problems if they want to go out and test it.
Let's
the
not talk
biggest
about
one
that.
I can see is it's not compatible with older Kdenlive projects. So
Yes.
you're going to have to start again from scratch on any given project if you want to do it on this. So I was reading all about this and I'm thinking, yeah, really this is quite interesting, but I don't do any video editing. So sorry, guys, I don't really have a Scooby-Doo what this is all about.
Scooby-Doo.
So I think we need to go to Michael, our resident editing expert.
Well, I'm happy to have a chin wag about Kdenlive. So, what's really cool about this new version is there's a lot of improvements to the various different the fundamentals of it'll look the same. It'll have some new features and things like that. Better control for effects and stuff like that. But like the majority of it is a back end infrastructure fix. So like there's a lot of cool things coming. So when you import files or import clips, it will automatically split the audio and video tracks. You can edit them more independently rather than having to manually split them every single time. So that's a really cool option. And there's a couple things that, as far as bugs from previous versions, that are all fixed. Like there's a couple bugs that I noticed that are not really big deals, but they're kind of annoying. And all of those have been fixed in my testing. So I'm happy to see that. And as far as the current projects that not working, that's just a current situation that the betas are having. Because there's so much change they have to make it. They have to, finish the development for that before they can make sure that the projects are seamlessly upgrading. So right now they don't work, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be in the future. So just so you know that it is very much a beta, and they do want testing, but it's a beta. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. So Rocco, you're the guy that does all of our editing for us and makes the Destination Linux podcast look great. Is there anything particularly in here that you think, yes, that's going to just save me a lot of time?
Well, I'm not exactly familiar with the whole separating of the audio and video channels automatically. So I don't know how that's going to affect everything for me personally.
It's just a setting. You can turn it off if you don't want it.
Well, it may be a good setting. I don't know. I just never using Kdenlive. It doesn't have it right now. So
right. I split it probably 50% of the time because it allows me to mute the audio but not ruin the video if I want to use for a transition point or something like that.
Well, usually what I end up having to do is put a volume key in there so that it'll just lower it at that moment. Is what I usually do. Yeah,
that works too.
But I did try it out, and I was really excited to try it out. Unfortunately, like you said, Michael, the projects don't exactly work right now. So I tried to import a current version project into it. It didn't work. But hopefully by the time it comes out in August, it will be fixed.
And this is such an important project. When I think back of, starting with Linux, this was one of the projects that first blew me away. And I thought, coming from a Windows and Adobe Premiere, and thought, okay, I can use Linux and not have to ever boot back into Windows again because of having Kdenlive there. There are other alternatives out there, some more professional, some less, some kind of supposed to be at the same level. But Kdenlive to me was the one that caught my attention. It was the one that kind of made me feel at home coming from Premiere. And it's just a very powerful editor that allows you to do powerful things very quickly and efficiently. And I just absolutely love everything about this program. And I'm so glad they're continuing to enhance it because I think it is a critical piece of other people deciding to stay with Linux as their main desktop environment. Having a powerful video editor out there is going to be one of those things that a lot of people will look for. And Kdenlive is an important piece of that portfolio.
It also adds a lot of improvements to the performance because they're doing this. There's a lot of times where you're doing editing, you're looking at the timeline, you're looking at the effects panel, the properties of the clips and stuff like that. And you have a small little monitor of what you're doing. We don't need that monitor to be the full 1080p quality video. So they're making it so that the monitor could now use a low res version so it can render stuff faster while you're doing the editing, so you don't have to worry. So if you're doing certain things that you need to see a full version, you can full screen the monitor. But if you don't need it, you can do a smaller version and get everything done faster. So I like that approach too.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing because I don't use that monitor. Actually, I full screen that little monitor onto my secondary screen, and that's how
I do that too. About 50-50. Sometimes I don't need it. Sometimes it's nice to see. It's like make sure it's exactly where I want it to be. But if it's just like I'm going to do a transition, a clip here and the clip there, I just do it in the small one because as long as I see it working, it's all that matters.
Well,
Nice.
Speaking of KDE improvements,
How are we back on KDE again?
How are we not always on KDE?
Wow. What's happening?
Everyone who loves the topics of KDE, you know it.
look,
Just seeing you light up as soon as it's mentioned is worth it by itself.
KDE
Right?
is the leader in innovation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they
It's
are.
true.
They are. They innovate all the time. That is true.
So Nate Graham has put another usability
Always for the best.
and productivity, part 25 this time, and the biggest feature coming out, Michael.
It's not the biggest.
The
but continue.
biggest feature coming out. We can finally hit Control-Alt-T for a terminal.
For the console.
It's not the biggest.
Something you can pretty much do in any desktop environment.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can do it in KDE.
To be fair, it is not something brand new that you couldn't do before.
Default.
You just had to manually set it up for you if you
Default.
wanted.
You're the big default guy.
I am the big default guy, and I'm totally not. I'm not saying this is not good for a lot of people. I'm just saying that it's not the most important news from this release.
What do you
But
think?
still-
What do you
Question of
think?
Michael doing a moonwalk backwards there.
Yeah.
What do you
There
think
go.
is the biggest thing coming out in this?
I think the really cool stuff that's coming out in Dolphin is going to be is great. Like there's a new share menu that's coming in Dolphin, and the share menu is like, do you want to send it to your phone for KDE Connect? Do you want to send it directly to Telegram? So any application that has direct integration with the desktop, you can just say right click send via this. That's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not great for everybody because not everybody needs that, but the people who do need it is fantastic because I stopped dragging and dropping and moving things or like mounting drives a long time ago since I started using KDE Connect and all this other stuff. So I'm happy to see it.
You know what my favorite feature is, Rocco?
What's that?
Discover Toolbar no longer experiences layout breakage when navigating between apps. That's
Why are we talking about KDE again?
Wait, I just want to throw in that it somehow I missed it on the radar that back in the usability articles that he writes in episode 21 on his blog, he noted something that what drove me insane, and that was that you can now in these versions open Dolphin and root again.
Yay! They brought it back.
Oh, finally.
So one of the bug fixes was Dolphin and Kate can once again be launched when logged in as the root user, which is something that should have never went away in my opinion.
Mhm.
But they had all the technical reasons, and I'm sure, Michael, you could sit down for an hour with us and tell us all the technical reasons why we shouldn't have that.
This is a
moving
problem
on.
about
But I think it's a wise decision and a great move by them to put it back in.
Yeah, I understand why they did it, and it was mainly because if they took it out because there was an issue with it doing it. If you did it at a certain time, it would potentially, not like a time of the day or anything, but while there was code that was not ready, it would potentially break things. So it's better for them to say, just right now, it's not available. You know, they also didn't ever say that it was coming back. So I'm glad to say it's coming. I'm glad to see it actually is coming back. So that, because a lot of people do like that. But something that people don't necessarily like is now GitHub. But this is a completely different topic, and this is a very interesting issue because it's not GitHub or Microsoft's fault in this case. But
Wow, did you say it's not Microsoft's fault?
Yeah, it's got to be Microsoft's fault.
In
They
this
bought
particular
GitHub.
case,
As soon as they bought it, they get hacked.
yeah, in this particular case, the GitHub repository for Gentoo was hacked fairly recently and was taking control, and a lot of files were being removed and malicious scripts were done. At one point, they replaced lots of parts of the compiler with rm-rf and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're not aware of what rm-rf is, it just deletes everything. So
don't put that in the terminal, please.
Yeah, don't use that. Don't use that.
It'll be in our show notes copy.
Yes, but this is just the GitHub repositories. This is nothing to do with Gentoo itself, right?
Right. Well, it is the Gentoo. The difference is the GitHub repository for Gentoo is not a mirror. It was its own separate thing. So it kind of had a little bit of confusion for some people thinking that this was like more important than it really is. But the infrastructure of Gentoo is on gentoo.org and is not affected by this particular thing. So
they also discovered this ridiculously quick. And you know what I find funny about this whole story is anytime anything happens in Linux that happens to be some type of security vulnerability thing, which generally ends up being like somebody didn't put two-factor authentication on or something small like that, the media freaks out. Like,
and they blame Linux because Linux is awful or
meanwhile, Windows is having, controls taken over through JavaScripts in a browser. But hey, with Linux, you've got this one little thing where somebody forgot to put two-factor authentication. It makes headline news. Oh my gosh, Gentoo Linux got hacked. One of the most advanced versions of Linux got hacked. Well, that's the headlines you saw everywhere, but it's completely nonsense when you think of it. Because this
repo, it's not even an important repo. It's just a mirror of people who use GitHub, and they're like, oh, it's like Linux is like, we told you Linux is a problem. Like, completely ignore the fact that our systems are being crypto locked and we have no option except pay thousands of dollars to get our computers back. That's not important. GitHub, someone got to the password access, and not a big deal.
But I actually saw articles saying that like Linux users who thought they are safe need to think again. I'm like, come on.
That's
where are you going with this?
The kind of funny thing is it also shows that just because you might be you might be an expert at something, like a programming developer, or you're an expert in that kind of field, you might still make mistakes. So in this case, it was because they used a password scheme that was kind of problematic. Rather, it was a completely different password for every website. Like, that's one of the things they tell you to do, but it was like a scheme or a schema where if you figure out one of the website's passwords, you could kind of guess the rest of them. And that's kind of what created this problem. So they've addressed it. They've actually added two-factor authentication and all this other stuff. So this is very unlikely to happen again, but it does kind of teach you that even if people who are very, very educated in a particular topic and are experts and are developing one of the hardcore distros and stuff, people still make mistakes. So,
it happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good news is this next article that we're going to move on to is a bit of a double-edged sword, because don't panic, Gmail hasn't been hacked. That's because the developers, they don't have to hack them, because Gmail is giving access to your emails to certain third-party developers. But no, don't panic. They have been vetted. So your email to find out how Auntie Flo's dog is doing is really important to the developer of that particular app that wants to get that GIF of the dog. Well, Google, what are you doing? You've already got enough privacy concerns with everything that you use about us. Who gave you permissions to give somebody my private emails? I think this is even more shocking than the fact that we know they get information about us.
Nobody wants to believe me. Everybody wants to make little jokes about Ryan hating Google, and I don't hate Google, but this is just more
Apple fanboy alert.
This is just more credence to the fact that Google constantly has crap permission systems and constantly misleads people who are already very easily misled about security out there in public, because it wasn't but a month or two ago where Google's like, guess what, guys? We're no longer going to be reading your email. But they didn't tell you in the small print, even if they had small print, was, by the way, we're still going to leave it completely open to all the third-party app developers out there that want to go read your email. Not just snapshot it, but literally have access to go in and read your individual emails and look at your attachments and everything that you send. This, to me, is just a constant reason why you should be on Proton Mail and give up on this Gmail crap.
Okay. As an Android user, I agree.
Well, look, everybody agrees that this is a terrible thing. But this is, I mean, I can't help but say that this is not something surprising. Like, this is not, to me, like, okay, so when you do an app or when you install something, it says this is going to have access to all of your emails. So you know that. Like, I know that we've kind of got to the point where we just click on by permission to get through to the app. But when you're using a Gmail address and when you're accepting these things, you more or less have to realize that happens, that they're going to read every single email you have. So any email that you have going through a Gmail account is going through Google servers. They have everything they want on it.
It's not okay.
I didn't say it was okay.
People allow it. And it's not okay that, Google, I think, misleads people by going out and making this big announcement, like suddenly they're privacy focused and we're not going to read your email. And meanwhile, leave all this stuff open. It reminds me of when I did the video recently on going back to Windows after 2 years. And I go to install a Blu-ray player from the App Store, and it wants access to everything, to read everything in my file system. How many people do you think are installing that Blu-ray player because, Windows doesn't come with that 10 anymore, are actually going to read all of that?
Yep.
And realize that, this Blu-ray player actually is going to now read everything on my computer? Yeah, but most people, me and you and Rocco and Zeb, and we're going to look at that and go, I'm not installing that. But your average user is not going to care. And that's what makes Gmail so dangerous, is they're so used to seeing those app permissions and not caring.
Yep. I agree.
And not realizing what that actually is doing, what you're giving somebody access to do. An email, my gosh, you've got everything there now. That's like literally somebody reading your mail out of your mailbox. In fact, it's worse, and it's against the law to read people's mail. So it really shocks me that we actually thought at some point that we need to create a law to make it a federal crime to go and open somebody's mail, their mailbox. We get more important documents now in our email, but allow companies like Google out there to do this stuff, to me, is absolutely heinous.
It's actually kind of worse, considering a lot of people use their email as like a catch-all for being able to reset passwords and stuff like that. So even if you get someone's email, you can just assume you also can get whatever password you want to.
Proton mail, that would be a good alternative.
But I mean, in fairness to what Rocco said as well, it is down to the individual user, because if you're going to install a Torchlight app on your phone, why would it need access to absolutely everything?
Yep.
Surely it just needs the camera and a battery.
It just goes back to being careful when you're installing stuff. And it doesn't matter if you're on Windows, if you're on Linux, no matter where you're at, Android, just be careful what you're installing and understand. Don't just click buy these permissions. Understand what the permissions are, what they're going to do, what they're allowed to have before you do it. Now, some people may be okay with giving them permission to do all this stuff. But I do agree there's a large percentage, Ryan, of people that just are so used to it, they just want to click accept, okay, and get into trying this new app out, that they don't really think about the repercussions of hitting accept. But seeing as how everybody loves Google News, we're going to stick with that. So the GPMTP, short for Google Play Music Desktop Player, has a new version out. And, you can be saying to yourself, why would we be talking about this on a Linux
Yeah, why would we, Rocco?
Okay, so it does work with Linux. And if you are using Google Play Music for your music subscription rather than Spotify, you can use this to, dare I say, sign into your account and play your music. Okay, if you have a YouTube Red subscription, you automatically get the music with it. This will allow you to play it. But one of the new features that came out with this is the YouTube Music integration. So now you can not only play your library of music, but you can also switch it through the system tray to play YouTube music, where all of your liked videos of your audio will be available to play in this music player, which I think is awesome.
What kind of permissions do you have to give it?
Got to give it everything. Everything about you.
Read my whole computer. No, I think it's good to see some of these apps. I mean, what I try to think about here is new users coming to Linux wanting to be able to have those services like Google Music or YouTube Red and that type of stuff when they come over here, and not.
It's a YouTube Premium now.
Yes, they did
keep
change
changing
it.
the name.
Because they're Google.
And it'll change next week again. And it'll go into beta.
Yep.
But in any
It'll
case,
go into beta.
it is an Electron app, which I know there is some weird, strange thing out there where a lot of people in the Linux world hate Electron because of its being bloated or whatnot, but it is an Electron app. So,
but this app features, the normal things that you would expect out of a music player. Support for media keys. You can customize it to be a dark theme. So if you're into the dark themes, you can definitely do that. It has integrated desktop notifications. So if you're into that, if you're into YouTube Music, or if you have the subscription, it's definitely something to check out.
Well, I noticed, Rocco, when we were putting this document together this week, you just kept loading us up with Google news. So
yeah, it was all my fault.
Officially declaring Rocco and Zeb as platinum Google users. And speaking of which, Google is also now a platinum member of the Linux Foundation.
Yay!
So we now get a valid reason why we can talk about Google.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So Google recently raised its donation from $100,000 to $500,000 a year. The CEO literally pulled that $500,000 out of his pocket and no, he didn't. I'm lying, but that's not a lot of money for Google.
Good, probably.
But in any case, it is great that they were able to, up their money towards the Linux Foundation. So what do you guys think?
Michael, they definitely have access to the kernel now. They definitely are going to control the kernel completely, and they're going to take over, right?
Definitely not. So what I wanted to talk about this particular topic was because a lot of people are looking at it as the companies that are like platinum members or sponsors or even on the board of Linux Foundation as having power over the kernel. They do not. The Linux Foundation has a deep connection with the kernel, but it's not in control of the kernel. So it does it funds the kernel, it supports the kernel, it advocates for Linux in general, and it pays the like employment of, not really employment, but like the supporting funds of Linus Torvalds and Greg KH. So like there is a connection, but it doesn't just because they become like a platinum sponsor or they come on the board, they don't get control. So Microsoft's been on been a member of the Linux Foundation for quite a while, and they still have never taken over control. So it's really good that they've done this, and it's helpful to the Linux Foundation, and overall it's good for the ecosystem. You don't have to worry about any kind of control issues or anything.
Very
nice. Because Linux still has that.
Well, you've got IBM, Intel, Samsung, Microsoft, and that one company I can never pronounce. Can someone help me out, Michael?
Huawei.
Huawei.
Yeah, HUAWE. How does that not obvious? It's Huawei.
You're right. How silly of me.
It's such actually.
And you're from the phone industry. Surely you should have known that.
Yeah, but they're kind of there's a long story behind why they're not really a relevant developer within the thing yet within the US anyways, because
I think Huawei's they've actually shot themselves in the foot, and I don't like them anymore because they purposefully made it where you can't unlock the bootloaders anymore.
Yes.
They used to do it, now you can't do it anymore, so you're dead to me, Huawei.
There you have it.
But they are all
Huawei
sponsors now of Linux. So there you go. You've got a lot of big corporations in there throwing a lot of dough at Linux's Foundation's way. So ultimately, I think that's a good thing.
Good job, Huawei, for giving money to Linux Foundation. Stop being stupid about your bootloader.
Yeah. And you're on warning
from Michael.
I do have a Huawei phone though, so
tuxdigital.com /
It's an old phone I don't use. Okay, no one can, you're not helping the spelling there, so that's still not a helpful. Anyway, so let's talk about something that's actually good instead of Huawei. So
going from a warning shot, how about giving us an open shot?
Wow,
nice.
Wow,
well done, sir.
So speaking of OpenShot, OpenShot has a new release of 2.4.2, adding some cool effects and some improved stability. I think I might have said instability, but I meant improved stability. and that's very good. I like stability. And so that they
He's having such a hard time talking about something that's not KDE related.
Right?
Do you see him? He's just struggling. He's like, is there anything bad I can say? Because these nice words hurt every time.
I do like some of the stuff they're doing. It's nice and interesting. It's just Kdenlive already had it, and it's just not that.
I was just going to say, all he can see in these these notes of saying what the new feature is, Kdenlive has it. Kdenlive has it. Kdenlive has it.
While I was watching the introductory of the features, I was thinking, I was like, okay, Kdenlive has that. Yeah. But it is cool that they're doing this, and the audio mixing is really cool because it's automatic audio mixing, and I do like that. And I wish Kdenlive had that. So there are some things that it has over Kdenlive for sure.
Did you get that on record? Yeah, there are.
It's recording, Zeb. It's recording. So
but there's that you missed that second part where I said not many. Kdenlive's the best.
Yeah. So has anybody tried this new release? I
did.
What do you think of it? Because in the past, it's been known to crash often.
Yeah. Kdenlive crashes too, ever so often. So, but it does have a great recovery system built into it so that when it does crash, you just say recover and it usually comes back. So right. I don't know that it crashes any more or less than Kdenlive. I think I had one issue while I was rendering a video where it crashed, but it did the same thing. It recovered the file fine. OpenShot is very beautiful. In fact, if a new user came to Linux and was maybe from, I don't know, Microsoft Movie Maker and those type of things where they're more used to a 3D GUI like interface, I would think they would find OpenShot more inviting when you first log into it than Kdenlive. But I would say ultimately when it comes to being able to edit for me, I find more familiarity and enjoyment in Kdenlive's structure. But I love some of the things they're adding to OpenShot when it comes to effects. And I think ultimately, once you get the stability out of the way, learning the theme, one or the other, is just a matter of taking the time to learn it. But which one has the most effects that you can do most advanced things with the videos once you have them imported is going to be a winner. And so seeing that, they have new audio mixing options, and they have these new effects such as crop, hue, color, shift, pixelate, bars, wave, shift, and all this stuff added in there, I think is a huge improvement. And I like the competition being in there, even though it's open source. Yeah, so that it pushes Kdenlive and others to do more.
I do like the fact that some of these features that they added for these effects are easier to do in OpenShot than they are in Kdenlive. Like when I say Kdenlive has everything, it's because they just have a ton of features, but they have a big learning curve to learn how these features work and stuff like that. And sometimes they're not intuitive at all, where I was testing one feature and it was doing something that I didn't expect it to do, and I had to compensate for it. I did like the fact when I wanted to just add a hue or a crop to OpenShot, the effect was very simple to add. And then, so I like that. So I like the fact that they're adding some powerful features, but also doing it in a user-friendly way.
All right, Michael, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the news, and we're going to talk to you about what you've been up to this week.
Besides moving pianos.
Besides being a piano mover.
That's what I do every day. What are we talking about? I'm Johann Sebastian Mike. Anyway, so when I wasn't doing piano moving, which is rare, I was working on making a product review video, and there's something that a lot of people don't realize is that there's a lot of effort going into making videos. Even live streams like this, there's preparation time. There's setting up all the notes and doing the editing and all that stuff. There still is, in every aspect of making video content, there's a ton of it. And one of the things I was working on this week is a product review video that I'm going to release this coming week. And it's interesting because I did like 35 videos, and I'm still probably about half done. I did about 35 videos in order to edit those down into a single video. And
so
one of the
questions in your Telegram group was, you did 35 videos. Why would you do that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, as far as like the structure of making content is, it's hard to just have like a big list of things you want to talk about in a product and just in one go do all of them. So what I do is I create an outline for items and just say, okay, remember this particular piece. And then I will do a video on that piece, and then I'll have the outline ready to go. So I'll just record back to back. But it also gives you able to easily piece them together, as well as make multiple takes just in case you forgot to say something, things like that. So the multiple videos is to make it so that it's easier to get to the editing process, because the editing takes the most time and is probably the most annoying. But if you are prepared with the multiple videos, it makes that a lot easier. Unfortunately, one of the preparations I did sort of backfired at some point. I was talking about the product reviews, the product's negatives about the video in the video, and the microphone didn't work well. Somehow it didn't work at all. So I was using I was using the
to change the batteries.
perfect timing too. I did change the batteries. Yes,
definitely convenient.
It was not like the talk. So I had this issue where the on-camera was onboard camera microphone was doing the audio. So I still have audio and I still have the video, but I didn't notice that until after I had done everything and put everything away and all this other stuff. So this is kind of like, even if you do a lot of preparation, there's some things that still might go bad, and it's okay. You just kind of just deal with it and move on. And in this particular case, the section about the videos, the negative about the product, also is the part of the video that has negative value of audio.
So you're a sellout basically, because people are going to watch this video. You're going to be like, and the negatives are, and it's going to be silent, and then it's going to get right into the positive stuff.
No.
So you're clearly a sellout. You've been paid by this product, and I think people need to. Oh, sorry.
Wow, sir. One, the audio is not good, but it's there. And I'm leaving it there, and I'm leaving it bad because I don't want to set everything back up and record it for just one video, one segment. So I did check everything else, and everything else is fine, but just that one. So there's it's just kind of interesting because there's like, it's just a thing I want to talk about as far as like a lot of effort is going to all these different videos, and we all make our own set of videos, and most of us do editing. Not everyone, but most of us do editing, and it's a lot of effort that a lot of people don't really realize how much effort there is, because when you look at a video and you look online and it's like this nicely crisp setup video, most of the time there's at least 4 or 5 times longer effort in order to make that video in the first place.
At least.
So, yeah.
Wouldn't you love to get a behind the scenes Michael video?
Right.
Where he can't cut it and it's just his raw, like rambling.
You could totally do that. In this particular Destination Linux episode of live streams, that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
In live streams, that does happen. And
Rocco, give us some good gaming news, man, to pump us up.
well, speaking of live sessions, we did a live session the other week, and somebody had mentioned about playing Overwatch and that they couldn't play Overwatch in Linux. And there's an article out right now that talks about installing Overwatch on Linux, and has to do with installing Lutris. And by the way, I'd love to get the Lutris developer on here to talk about his whole program, because it's definitely something that makes it easier to play games on Linux. But you can install Lutris and then install Overwatch, and it is playable. So are you guys Overwatch fans?
It's super complex, Rocco. First of all, we got to go through the steps. This is going to confuse
Hold
people.
on. Let me write this down.
Okay. First, install Lutris.
Okay. I got it.
Mm-hmm, got it.
Then head to Lutris Overwatch page. Okay, and here's where it gets complex. This is where you guys might get lost. Click the install button.
Wait, what?
Hold on. Let me write that down again.
The install button.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And then you're done. And now you can play Overwatch on Linux.
Really?
Oh, okay.
No, it can't be that easy. This is come on.
Yeah, that's it. And I've played Overwatch a lot on consoles, and I enjoyed the game. I got tired of it after a while, and I know people absolutely are fanatics of this game, and there's a lot of competitions and things on Twitch out there. Now, me, I'm more of a ballistic overkill guy still.
Yeah.
Overwatch has got a huge fan base, and I know a lot of people who are switching to Linux would be like, but what about my Overwatch game? Here you go.
I've never actually played Overwatch, but I assume it's automatically inferior to Ballistic Overkill because I have played that, and it's on Linux.
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's native, but that's just cool. I mean, I have never played it because it's never been accessible to me. Now that it kind of is, maybe. We'll see. Yeah. But as far as what is accessible is there's a lot of Steam games on Linux, and the announcement from the Steam communities showed that there's a somewhat small amount of people playing on Linux.
Fake news.
It is fake news. Yes. Hashtag fake news. The problem, there's so many different levels. I won't go into a diatribe of why it's bad, like why these numbers are wrong, but they are wrong. And overall, it's interesting because I think it did go up from the last time they displayed the information, but the information then was also wrong. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting here, what people need to realize is these numbers come out and they're like, oh my gosh, Linux is only 0.5% of the market share when it comes to gaming, based on Steam's periodic marketing, which has a lot of faults into it. But one thing I do want to get out is to make sure you set your preferences in Steam to Linux.
Yeah.
And this is very simple, right? Rocco, get your pen.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
You're going to click your username at the top right-hand corner of your Steam profile.
Click Geek.
There you go. Click Preferences.
Preferences, okay.
Then scroll down to Platform Preferences and choose SteamOS plus Linux. And there you go. And then you're still going to get the same other offering. So if you're still one of those people that dual boot and want to see Windows, but what it's going to do is basically let Steam know that your preferences is for Linux games. When you're searching things, it's going to see your preferences are for Linux games. And if you're getting a survey with those few moments that you boot into Windows, don't take it. Boot back into Linux.
Yeah, don't take it.
So, a lot of people talk about, I never got a survey every time this comes out. So I think this number is a little undervalued. A lot of people I've seen that have done similar statistics are more in the 0.9 to 1% of the market share. But macOS has dropped as well, and I am hoping most of those users are going to Linux. They have a 2.93 share.
But my question is, how reliable are these monthly numbers? I mean, they're
not reliable at all.
I mean, that's a varied thing. I mean, from real life matters and vacations and all kinds of stuff to say, hey, for the month of June, we're down to 0.52%. I mean, I would definitely much rather go by a yearly number rather than a monthly number.
Well, they also say specifically when the last announcement where they're talking about the numbers where they found out that there was the numbering that we were talking about how it was so low. It was because that they were having people or computers in cyber cafes in China being heavily counted, even though they shouldn't have been counted. So because they were reflashing Windows over and over. So it was a whole new machine that Steam thought it was new, but turns out it's just the same one over and over. So the numbers were massively skewed, and they announced and they admitted that they it's only supposed to ask you once per year. So why is it doing it giving you monthly numbers when, for example, I maybe only get once a year, or you maybe get once a year, but in most cases for Linux users, it's never. So there's that.
I need 10,000 Raspberry Pis. I need to cluster them, get them all running and reflashing Steam on a constant refresh basis, and we're going to get this number way up there, man.
Ryan,
I'm in for 10,001.
Do they have any numbers on, distributions or maybe different CPUs?
Yeah, so they had numbers on Ubuntu 18.04 and 16.04 being the most popular Linux distros in use for, which I don't think is surprising. I mean, also within Steam,
I didn't see Fedora there.
Anyways, that's because on Fedora we're doing serious business and making things work so that you all can game.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Intel CPUs, of course, were 80% of the users, and 20% used AMD, the smarter 20%. And then GeForce 1060 is the most popular GPU of the bunch. So that's some interesting numbers out there.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think those numbers can be right, because there are more and more very good games coming to Linux. And yes, you heard it. Zeb said very good games coming to Linux.
Wow.
And one of them that took my eye is Ant Ventor. And I must admit, when I first saw the name, I thought, oh, here we go. A piece of square with a couple of legs. But actually, it's almost like movie quality graphics. It looks really, really good. The transitions from scenes to scenes is really good. And although some part of it sort of looks like a platform type game, as this poor ant tries to get its way out of its little anthill, you get outside and then you get into this point and click adventure. Now, the only thing that concerns me is how many times am I going to click on the wrong thing and die before I learn what the puzzle is going to be? And with you more experienced gamers, how do these sort of things come along, and how easily are they normally to play?
Well, point and clicks are not so. No, they're nice adventure games because it's not meant to be like a frustrating thing. It's just more of a puzzle game, and they're more like a casual, like relaxing type of game.
It's definitely the type of game that I would rather play over the ridiculously hard, sometimes puzzle games that, you're doing algebra in and writing down things so that, that's not my idea of relaxing. I guess it is
I
fun.
prefer calculus.
Yeah. I guess it is fun for some people. It's, different strokes for different folks, but
right.
I definitely like the point and click adventure games.
Yeah.
Point and click are great games to play on a laptop or something. Maybe if you have a lower powered machine as well, where you're not going to be able to handle the frames per second, say in like a shooter or something along those lines. They're very relaxing, and you're kind of more vested in the story than kind of rushing through. So they can be a lot of fun if they're done correctly. This is kind of this game, they released it with Linux out there, but it's only got 35 reviews that are positive right now. So good reviews on it. The graphics look beautiful. People should check it out because the developer Loopy Mood, they are supporting Linux. And so if you're a gamer, go check it out and give them some love on this $4.99 game. You can't lose. That's way less than a movie ticket.
Just be careful of one thing, though. Apparently, if you are a good gamer, it should only take you a couple of 3 hours to finish it. So it's not like it's going to be a long-lasting game unless you then try and go back, and I don't know if you can up the difficulty level to get through it or whether it's just one stagnant stream. But no, beautiful little game and worth checking out.
Talking of beautiful games, though.
Oh, my gosh.
This is your fault, Rocker. You put this in the document, and as soon as you did, I bought it because I could not contain myself. First of all, the name of the game is so awesome. I hate running backwards. By the way, the little known fact about Das Geek, the only time I ever broke my arm was running backwards. Right?
There you go.
So
now
I
you know.
I hate running backwards. So running backwards is a shooter game that reminds me very much of Smash TV, but with better graphics. You basically are constantly running backwards, but you have a whole plethora of enemies being thrown at the screen. You're getting power-ups as you go, kind of an R-type, how R-type or space shooters kind of have that. You're getting power-ups as you're going through the different maps and getting different weapons and all this. But you've got enemies just piling in onto the screen. It's very easy in those parts, but then you've got boss battles that come in almost like Borderlands style with the big splash screen to tell you a little bit about the boss. And then you go to war with him, which gets a little more difficult. This is such a fun game to play, man.
So are you playing, you say you're running backwards. Are you running right to left or what?
No, it's just kind of going like this.
Okay.
The character's always at the top.
It's like how those games they're like those not the top down scrollers where you're it's kind of like the old style of like Asteroids where you're at the bottom and they scroll up. It's the reverse of that. So you're at the top and you're going down, but you have to run back. You have to run backwards the whole time in order to like pick up power ups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I find astonishing about this is I think Ryan just used the statement, and this is better graphics than something else. Wow, I'd hate to say that.
That's astonishing to you, Zeb. This is coming from the graphics geek here.
Game because, again, I know I keep dragging up the same old, but this is like playing something in the 90s. It's...
Yeah.
Exactly. What was wrong with the 90s, Zeb? The graphics are
absolutely
not
nothing in the 90s, but not in 2018.
They're not pixelated
like
graphics.
Metal Slug type stuff.
I just can't do
like
the nostalgic games.
Well, listen, those of you who got a Steam controller, which I think the Steam controller and the Steam Link were ridiculously priced during the summer sales, like $4 a piece or something.
The controller was like 30, but the
Steam controller works
$2.
for the Steam as well. So,
well, speaking of nostalgic, Ryan ought to love this next one.
Yeah.
So, Spelunky Classic HD is a game that I guess is a nostalgia game. And it is now available thanks to the podcaster that shall not be named. It is finally available in a snap.
Yeah.
So 2 commands and you can install it and play it. I did play it and it reminded me of...
You fell in love. It's your favorite game ever.
Okay, so
No, it's not his favorite. He's got, Dogafesto.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I love these type of games. Yeah, I'll be with Zeb here for the moment. I love these type of games when they came out. Like when they came out, they were awesome. I don't know if I would sit down for hours and play it now, but it is always nice to go back and see the nostalgia games. So did anybody else try it?
I have not tried Spelunky. This may be a game, though, I sit down with my son and play on his laptop, which is Linux, by the way. He's 5. But this would be a cool game, I think, that he may be able to get into. And that's what I look at these games. They're free. You don't know how long you're going to keep a 5-year-old's attention with the game, so spending money on them, not always the best idea out there. But the games like this, you could throw in there. It's a cave exploration game. It's the classic. People love this game. I mean, it has a huge cult following. You could get Spelunky out there before, but not in a snap. That's what makes it cool. I could just go.
Well, I think that's where the story is. I mean, it's not about the specific game. It's the fact that Martin and Alan both have been putting in a lot of time to Snapcraft and to actually putting these specific games into snaps. Trackmania Nations Forever was another one they snapped up.
They also snapped up Xenotic recently.
Yep. They did snap up Xenotic, and that is a FPS shooter that is, it's an arena type FPS shooter, so you have to like that fast-paced style, but it is an awesome game. And another one that you could install before on Linux, so it's not like this is like brand new to Linux, but the idea is it's super easy to install now with like I said, 2 commands.
Yeah, the previous version of Xenotic required you to download the zip file, extract the zip file, then find out which of the binaries matches your hardware, whether you want to use the OpenGL version, the SDL version. Just snap now.
Right?
It's much better.
So thank you, Martin. Appreciate the hard work you guys are doing.
Yep.
And talking of hard work, gaming on Linux is working really, really hard these days. And they had a celebration this week. They are now officially 9 years old. And so, congratulations to Game on Linux. They really do provide an awesome platform for people to both learn about gaming on Linux and also how to play individual games. And I know that one of the celebration events that they were doing, and I don't know whether it was just going to be one game or a number of gamers, but they were doing a 9-hour stream, a constant stream on Twitch of various games. So, big shout out to Gaming on Linux. 9 years old. They're doing some great stuff. Now, do you guys ever go there to watch their videos to learn how to play a game?
No, that typically it's more of a news thing. So like I learned I use Gaming on Linux all the time to get news for games. Like probably about at least 50% of the content I get for games related on any of the games that I'm looking for is from Gaming on Linux. Like sometimes you'll see bits and pieces from here and there, but like most of the time, Gaming on Linux is the go-to for all that information.
Now, for their live streams and stuff on Twitch, I've caught a couple of them. It's weird, their schedules and mine, because I'm a big Twitch person, but they're rarely on at the same times that I happen to be watching Twitch.
Because they're based in the
I really
UK.
want to catch their live stuff more, but the few times that I've caught it, it was very entertaining. They play through the games that they're talking about that week, usually on the Gaming and Linux, or at least the times I've caught it, it seemed to be what was going on. So when they would write an article about a cool game in Linux that week, that would be what they were streaming and playing. And you do get some unique insights into it from them. And by the way, Amazon Prime offers an ability to give away if you have Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch sub. So that would be a great way to support them, is to give them your Amazon Prime.
Absolutely. And it's free to you as far as like, providing them with, something to give them back without having to do anything for it. But if you do decide to do that you have to redo that every month because the Twitch Prime requires you to re-sub every time. Yeah. Just so you know that. But as far as I think one of my favorite things about watching the videos and content from Gaming on Linux is they'll play games even if they're not good at them and still provide you with like some good content. Because there's a couple videos where Liam did a video about Dirt Rally and he's not good at driving games, but
I saw that.
Yeah. And he got to do some hardware testing. He got one of those steering wheels. So he's like, he also says, I don't even drive in real life either. So he lives in like the UK where you don't have to that much. And so he's like, this is my one few times ever actually driving a steering wheel. So it is just hilarious to see him going through it because he's trying to constantly explain why he's not good at it. It's just great.
They're an absolute staple to the Linux community. Even people who are not interested in gaming have to understand how important gaming and being able to bring attention to the gaming available on Linux is for attracting new people to Linux who are gamers, because a lot more people are gamers than aren't in your general population. So they're an absolute staple. Their articles are fantastic. They're always informative. They've been friends of the show. They've been on the show. They're just great people all the way around. So definitely go out there and support them. And congratulations on the 9 years. I can't wait to see 9 more.
Yeah, and then the fact that they've been doing it for 9 years is impressive because there weren't that many games in Linux 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they also have a Patreon page if you'd like to support them that way. They have LibrePay, PayPal, and they have a couple affiliate links for Humble Bundle and GOG. So I would definitely love to say happy birthday. Congratulations to Liam. I got to play with Liam and Mark Rocket League the other day, and it was an awesome time. So
I didn't invite someone.
Well, Rocco, you threw one more article in here, and you just had to make it Google, didn't you? You just had to make it Google.
You can blame it all on me, sure.
So what's going on with Google now, Rocco?
Well, look, Google is, I guess, the newest company to try to get into the gaming market. And this is akin to a service called OnLive that was a streaming service. And when OnLive came out, I was super excited to see how this could affect the gaming, because the idea is you stream the game. You don't have to have a powerful computer. You stream the game from their servers, and you are able to play a AAA titles and still not have a really powerful machine. The problem is, they were plagued with lag issues. OnLive was, and it obviously never took off. But here's the thing: Google, if anybody can complete that type of a service, if anybody can do that, it is Google, because of the servers that they have and because of Google Fiber maybe as well. You obviously are going to have a good connection to do something like this, but they are definitely trying to do a streaming gaming service. And I think it's great, because anything that we can do to, you could play a AAA game in your Firefox, or probably not Firefox. I don't know if they'd make it to work with Firefox, but the Chrome tab, you could play a AAA game if this works out.
Potentially, but I guess there's the good side of this, where this is like GeForce Now. For those not familiar, basically they run the games in the cloud. So all the GPUs and everything are sitting in servers in the cloud, and then you just log in and access it, and you're basically streaming the game from their servers. So now you don't have to have that, 1080 or Vega 64 or a super powerful computer. You could take your Chromebook potentially and be playing Battlefield on it. That's the kind of the advantage or idea behind it. Although, as I understand it, the GeForce Now is kind of hit or miss, depending, of course, on the one factor that streaming is really relying on, which is your internet connection. So if you've got a bad internet connection, you're not going to have a good experience there. It is interesting that Google's getting into it, but will they make it adaptable into Linux when they do it? Will they make it work there? Would be my first question, because Google's hit or miss there. Even though they're a platinum member in Linux Foundation, not all their stuff works in Linux.
Google loves everybody, dude.
Yeah. So I'm not even sure we would get the advantage, but it would create a unique situation if they did, in which now all of those games like Overwatch, Battlefield 5, Fortnite, all these games that people were like, well, I have to boot into Windows to play them, could now play it through a browser and never have to leave Linux.
That's the exciting part, because it's not about Google being in the news or Google doing this. But like I said, if any company has the resources to do it, they can. And can you imagine where I could buy a computer that just has a Intel processor with onboard graphics, or an AMD processor, and not have to worry about having a video card to play a game? I could play obviously they wouldn't have every game, but every game that they have that are Windows games, I could play and not have to worry about it. It would increase Linux adoption. if this happened.
I think it would be. I think it overall would be better. I think it would still be problematic in the sense of like, a lot of people would try it, and it would same issues that OnLive had would probably be similar, because a lot of people who wouldn't understand that they need a massive connection to be able to do it would still use it, and it would still have that kind of bad press sort of thing. But I think
again, this is just a rumor now.
So I think it's a good. I think
solid.
it's a good idea overall. It'd be beneficial. I mean, it wouldn't probably hurt Linux, because especially if you could do it on a Chromebook or something.
Yeah, but just be careful though when you do get this. You are going to need to read the 50,000 page EULA, because I have heard a rumor going around on Facebook at the moment that page 42,786, line 45, subsection C says you will hand over your firstborn son as well as all your data. So
it's good. Duly noted, Zeb. Duly noted.
Yeah. They're not only getting your data, they're coming for you as well.
There you go.
Well, I think that's all we have. So I just want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you listening and watching and supporting Destination Linux, because we appreciate it.
Definitely. And what we also appreciate as well is you sending us your comments, making remarks on our YouTube videos, and also if you're a patron under our patron videos. So keep all your comments and suggestions and questions coming through to the comments at destinationlinux.org, and we'll do our best to get back to you. But keep those questions and comments coming in. We do enjoy reading them.
Yeah, and also don't forget that we stream live this show. Well, most of the time we stream live on Sundays. Sometimes like an interview, maybe the interview guest might not want to, but most of the time, other than that, we do at least once every other week, where we do live streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and you can come chat with us during the show. And even if we're doing the show, we still have conversations in the chat room as well. So be sure to check that out. And if you're a patron, you should absolutely come check us out on live, because you could join the Zoom chat and have a pre-show and post-show with us, directly without having to, if you would like to talk as well, you can do that in Zoom.
Yep. Speaking of patrons, by the way, you guys can send us a email and we can get you out some stickers and some swag and things out there. So make sure you take advantage of that. And also joining the pre-show and after shows that the patrons get access to. Thank you guys for sending us our comments. We try to feature them on the shows when there's something we think everybody in the broader audience can benefit from and appreciate. So we love those emails. We love hearing from you guys and getting that feedback. So, we also appreciate seeing the comments when we're doing live stream, whether it's gaming on our individual channels or live streaming here, where people are telling others, hey, give thumbs up for us, because then it takes the awkwardness of us having to say it on stream. And I was noticing in chat, people come, hey guys, give thumbs up. That stuff does help, because it gets more attention to the show, which gets more attention in turn to Linux. And thank you to the patrons for continuing to keep the stream, free from all the ads and things that otherwise we'd have to do to fund it. So we really appreciate your constant support.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that'll wrap it up. Everybody have a great week. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Now you're going to get Michael to tell the story. They were best friends.
So what happened was, back in the day when I lived in Colorado,
every day before they go to bed, they send text messages.
No. We spent hours on the phone, and I had the cord. It was in the time there was corded phones, and I was spinning the cord around, and it was like, so like, what happened today?
Yeah.
They watched their favorite show, CSI, together.
Okay.
Right.
Click install. It uses Calamari as the installer, and have Gentoo up and running in 10 minutes.
But doesn't that defeat the purpose of Gentoo?
Not necessarily.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
Not necessarily. Let me look at the audio settings.
If you got a Rock Band mic, you wouldn't have this problem.
Wow.
Really? Is that where we're going to go now, Michael? Google again is now a platinum member of the Linux Foundation.
Why do we have so much Google news?
I don't know, Rocco. Why do we have so much Google news?
So I have no idea. Or destinationlinux.org/shut up, Ryan.
That is not very NPR of you. Nope, don't care. We have the concert that will be playing in the next hour on NPR. But right now with me is
Sebastian.
Michael. Michael,
Thank you.
thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I cut you off, but I really just wanted to say things.
We're changing our format. We're gonna have 14 million people too.
Yeah.
This episode of Destination NPR was sponsored by Birchbox and Squarespace and Ford Motor Company and Wix.com and 1-800-CONTACTS. As you can see, I don't wear those.
You guys gonna miss me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Michael.
Don't talk about me while I'm gone.
Oh, we would never do that. So, speaking of Ryan being ridiculous,
I think he froze.
No, I didn't freeze. I'm just mad.
I think you froze. I think he froze, Michael. So let's commence talking about him.
So rude. Just yellow.
When are you zooming in?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Keeping my eye on you. Because you see all these morons on Facebook selling the next thing. Like, I've got essential oils that will literally resurrect your dead ones if you just rub it on their forehead.
yeah.
It's only $9.95. How could you not totally get these essential oils? They're from India. And, you know, India is like a religion for like 2,000 years. They know this stuff. They know oils. Oh, this one's from China. They do acupuncture over there and stuff, and they eat roots, and they live forever. Our Western medicine can't compare to this stuff. Stupid Westerners. Can I just like give them my bank account number?
What's more important is when's Ryan going to put the second coat on to finish it off properly?
What are you talking about,
Wow.
Zeb? Wow, you do not talk about this Picasso behind me here. This is the best paint job that's ever been.
Well, Picasso's better than Mozart.
Yeah.
Why you use the Mozart reference for painting? I've no idea.
Something art. It's art. That's basically what I'm getting at, Zeb.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Picasso.
so.
This is Picasso. So, this is what I did is I painted everything and I taped it, and it's white. I feel like we've talked about me enough in this session.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, coming up on this episode of Destination NPR is Ryan. He's wearing a red hat.
Uh-huh.
Also,
I am.
red.
Are you gonna fix your camera before?
Uh-uh.
You gonna fix the color on your camera?
So Ryan's camera
I
is
know
actually red tinted.
I was gonna say
I'm on NPR right now. Hi, Mom.
but I will never be able to get a one-shot kill on the Vanguard. And all it does is alert him to where I'm at. So I take him down to like a quarter health, and boom, he shoots me in the head. So it's like, it's unfair. It's totally unfair.
So Vanguard is the one to play, or have I got to reach a certain level?
Zeb, forget what you just heard. Forget what you just heard.
Right, hang on. Email to Wimpy and Popey. Choose
Where
Vanguard.
is your allegiance here, Zeb?
To the flag.
Oh my God.
So I've disseminated the insider information, so it's all good. Popey and Wimpress will hear about it.
Wow, thanks, Zeb. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Rocco's a hustler.
No, I'm not. Now, he usually just shoots me. He don't worry about knifing. He just shoots me.
I've knifed you plenty of times, though.
No.
Oh, wow.
Fake news. That's fake news.
Got him.
Dang.
Got him. Now, if I see your name and I'm like relatively close, I try to knife you.
What is that all about? I mean, I don't understand that. Like, oh, you see
Like,
his
it's
name.
so easy.
I don't get that. It's a game. We're supposed to be shooting everybody.
I get most of my knife kills on Rocco, too.
When you get
Me
that
too.
one knife kill, you do.
Yeah. Well, I've only had one, and it was you. So I get my most. Do you notice how everybody still is trolling me in chat while we're doing the live show? Has anybody saw this?
No, I wasn't paying attention to
What is it
It's
about
easy?
trolling me that makes people so excited about doing it? It's not fair. Look at me. I'm a human being and I have feelings. It hurts.
It hurts. I see.
I'll have to go back and watch the live stream because I gotta see all the trolling because I don't get to
It's
see it.
Randy and Dark One. I mean, do you?
Yeah.
Wendy.
Randy and Dark One. Of
It's
course.
just if you've seen me do it
You go
before,
on a
why didn't you
tangent
remind me?
so quickly? You're
We can't say.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Hogg. You just sit there and like, I finally got the mic, everyone. I'm gonna talk the whole time.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about this story about how I dusted my table and Google. Here's another Google article, and you don't take a breath. There's nowhere for us to jump in.
Of course.
Well, and also if we did jump in, it would be rude because it's like, so you introduce us and it's like, well, let's talk about the emails. Wait, no, let's talk about us first.
Go back to
Well,
me,
that's what you
Rocco.
want to do anyway, Michael. So you might as well just say it.
What? That is
true. That's actually a
ridiculous.
good point.
That's ridiculous. Let's talk about me now.
No, you could.
Yeah, Michael, come on. Quit being lazy. It's worth your time to spend.
Right. You're more
Your
than willing
personal
to
time
spend
spent
my time editing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
So good. Like the second a new episode drops, the first thing I do is go to the outtakes and then I watch
That's
the rest
exactly
of
what I do.
it. And 9
Watch
times
them.
out of 10, I'm like laughing and my wife will walk in and she'll be like, are you literally laughing at a video of yourself? I'm like, no, it's the way Rocco edited. Like, you're so conceited.
My girlfriend
I'm
doesn't
so
bother with that
funny.
because she's like automatically, yeah, of course you're watching a video
Of
of
course you're
yourself.
Way to end the conversation, Rocco. You really brought us up on a high note there.